Okay, we're back. I appreciate Instagram letting me do this. I swear I'm not making a dime on anybody's stuff. I promise. I swear to God. Which I don't like using that term, but so be it. Father asked me to do this 2 years ago. Said that you will go on live media and you will speak on my behalf. I didn't know I was going to sing, but Ariana encouraged me. Thank you, Ari. You're so instrumental in everything that I'm doing. It's amazing. And you radiate light, like so amazing light. I can see why your fans demand a daily dose of anything from you. You're so adorable. And I graciously, once again, bow in thanks to you, Queen Ari, for all that you've done for me. And I love your phone messages. They're so cute. Keep them up. That's what I live for. So, let's get settled in and start talking about what God wants me to tell you all. Now, I probably should outline a little bit because I know there's a lot of new people that are joining in this situation. And I appreciate that. I know a lot of people are curious. And I don't blame them. Should be curious. Now keep in mind, I was the one that put out a big warning on March 12th. And I sent out a whole bunch of information on Twitter about the circumstance. And all of it is very true because I'm sure the scientists proved everything. I mean, there was videos of what I was involved in, thinking of, and looking over for Father. So, I am the seventh son of the seventh sojourn. 7 lifetimes lived on this world working for Father. This is the 7th, and this is a eternal one. At least that's what he tells me. I'm a paradise bestowal now. When I go, when he says to way in the future, I will rise to his right hand in the form that I'm in. He will not see me age. A million plus. Yeah. Heaven's planning a 95% expansion. That means another 133 trillion, approximately, universes. That's huge. Because you're children of God, supreme beings in your own right, you're invited to participate in this building a whole new area of heaven. It's very important. Father will always be here with me through the fragment, the Father fragment. Connects me to him and gives me all kinds of special abilities. For the longest of time, I've been in command of all the angels. Now, the top stuff, operations, are being reverted to Father and Brother Jesus, who is the universe sovereign. Jesus comes to me as the Spirit of truth. Both Jesus and God have spoken through me with my own mouth. I will let you know when this happens. So I will let you know when Father is utilizing me and when Jesus is utilizing me. You'll definitely know Jesus' voice. Oh man, he is not happy. Very upset. Last August, when I sent that Instagram video, he was on it. Expressing a lot of things. I'm an instrument of God. That way it makes me multifaceted. Trinity of Light can use me as they wish. I give myself totally, 100%, mind, body, and soul. I offer myself up to come into this war zone, the rebellion of Lucifer, caused a quarantine. No spirit can ascend out of here. I'm going to break it by merely telling you things about yourself spiritually that will unlock your consciousness. reason why there's such a problem is that some of the information you have is not accurate, which locks your spirit up. So, I don't ask you to believe everything I'm telling you, although you should pay attention. Obviously, from Twitter, I know a lot. And I had to study very hard to keep in front of that nightmare. But I'm going to stick to more spiritual stuff than temporal issues. I'll talk about some temporal a little bit later. But I thought I would do another show just to try to calm people down, give them a better look at me. Because a lot of people are bugging me, what do you look like? Because all the pictures I have are of me when I was younger. And pretty soon, when all this kind of starts to settle down and we can start interacting a little more, I'm going to come out. Kelly Clarkson has offered me to come to her show, and I said I would, and I still plan on doing that. That'll probably be the first time you'll really get to see me live and perform. That'll be in the future when we arrange it with her people, which they've contacted me quite a while ago, but I said the virus situation is keeping me occupied. I commend a lot of the scientists and researchers that are coming up with very smart ideas, and I approve of the antibody test. I doubt any vaccine will ever keep up with this, but I do find promise in the one that I saw earlier about a thing that shuts down the outer regions of the virus. It has like these little tentacles that attach to any cell that it comes across that's living. And it shuts that receptor-like thing down so it can't attach to things. But you gotta understand, these things are a mutation. A genetically engineered mutation. And gene editing is not editing, it's mutating. Don't play around with genetic structures that have been modified by God's people to be perfect blending with each other. You imbalance it just a little bit, and you'll tip nature. So don't play around with mutating genes. Don't call them editing, because that's so lame. You should have called it deleting, if anything. Sorry, I get upset about these things because I know a lot more than most people. Now, I don't do judgment. I don't do punishment. I don't decide any of that. I am like an investigator for God. He will have me look at stuff and find evidence, and when I do, He's already here looking at it with me. So, you're pretty much guilty by the evidence. Judgment will come from Father. I do not do judgment. I don't even think I do, because I am merely an instrument for God to wield as He wishes. He has used me as a defensive weapon quite a few times, especially last Easter, when I defeated the rogue Caligasia. Yeah, former planetary prince turned demon. But I'm not going to go into any more of that. Father is urging me to stick with the lesson. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I am a person who follows what Father wishes. So why don't we go to true values. Now keep in mind, I'm connected to the universal mind of God. It's like going into the biggest file setup you've ever seen. I have so much information to go through. I feel like a clerk standing before a gigantic wall of information. So, as I do this, He wants me to write an ascension book, a master book. This book will teach many beings and spirits that will come here to be trained. Because Father needs teachers to go to these new areas of heaven and teach the mortals of time and space. It is not meant to be like it is here. Because of the fact that rebellions do not happen that often. There has been 3 in this universe so far, which is not a good record to keep. So now is the time to remedy this situation. It'll be non-confrontational. To not confront anyone. I will not debate things, but I will answer questions, because I don't debate what Father tells me and Brother Jesus tells me. Okay, so this discourse, which is a course or class that Jesus taught about 2,000 years ago, it's my job to pick up his mission and carry it on all the way home. So I'm going to get right to it here. Okay. One day after the evening meal, Jesus and the young Philistine strolled out by the sea, and Kadaiah, not knowing that this scribe of Damascus was so well versed in Hebrew traditions, pointed out to Jesus the ship landing from which it was reputed that Jonah had embarked on his ill-fated voyage to Tarshish. And when he had concluded his remarks, he asked Jesus this question: "But do you suppose the big fish really did swallow Jonah?" Jesus perceived that this young man's life had been tremendously influenced by this tradition, and that its contemplation had impressed upon him the folly of trying to run away from duty. Jesus therefore said nothing that would suddenly destroy the foundations of Kadaiah's present motivation for practical living. In answering this question, Jesus said, "My friend, we are all Jonahs with lives to live in accordance with the will of God, and at all times when we seek to escape the present duty of living by running away to far-off enticements, we thereby put ourselves in immediate control of those influences which are not directed by the powers of truth and the forces of righteousness. The flight from duty is the sacrifice of truth. The escape from service of light and life can only result in those distressing conflicts with the difficult wails of selfishness which lead eventually to darkness and death, unless such God-forsaking Jonahs shall turn their hearts, even when in the depths of despair, to seek after God and his goodness. And when such disheartened souls sincerely seek for God, hunger for truth, and thirst for righteousness, there is nothing that can hold them in further captivity, no matter into what great depths they may have fallen. When they seek the light with a whole heart, the Spirit of the Lord God of heaven will deliver them from their captivity. The evil circumstances of life will spew them out upon the dry land, fresh opportunities for renewed service and wiser living." Kadaiah was mightily moved by Jesus' teachings, and they talked long into the night by the seaside. And before they went to their lodgings, they prayed together for each other. This was the same Kadaiah who listened to the later preachings of Peter, became a profound believer in Jesus of Nazareth, and held a memorable argument with Peter one evening at the home of Dorcas. And Kadaiah had very much to do with the final decision of Simon, the wealthy leather merchant, to embrace Christianity. Jesus' last visit with Kadaiah had to do with a decision of good and evil. This young Philistine was much troubled by a feeling of injustice because the presence of evil in the world alongside the good, he said, how can God, if he is infinitely good, permit us to suffer the sorrows of evil? After all, who creates evil? It was still believed by many in those days that God created both good and evil, but Jesus never taught such an error. In answering this question, Jesus said, my brother, God is love, therefore he must be good, and his goodness is so great and real that it cannot contain the small, unreal things of evil. God is so positively good that there is absolutely no place in him for negative evil. Evil is immature choosing and the unthinking misstep of those who are resistant to goodness, rejectful of beauty, and disloyal to truth. Evil is only the misadaptation of immaturity or the disruptive and disordering influence of ignorance. Evil is the inevitable darkness which follows upon the heels of the unwise rejection of light. Evil is that which is dark and untrue, and which, when consciously embraced and willfully endorsed, becomes sin. Your Father in heaven, by endowing you the power to choose between truth and error, created the potential negative of the positive way of light and life. But such errors of evil are really non-existent until such a time an intelligent creature wills their existence by mischoosing the way of life. And then are such evils later exalted into sin by the knowing and deliberate choice of such a willful and rebellious creature. This is why our Father in heaven permits the good and evil to go along together until the end of life, such as nature allows the wheat and the tares, T-A-R-E-S, to grow side by side until the harvest. And I was fully satisfied with Jesus' answer to his question after their subsequent discussion had made clear to his mind the real meaning of these momentous statements. And the translation is close as possible without it being off. And I realize sometimes it sounds a little choppy because the translation from the way they spoke then to the way we speak now is different. So, note that I've done this one. Now, I'm going to start doing a short little daily thing to let people know I'm still paying attention to stuff and I'm still monitoring everything. And if there's anything that comes up, Father and the angels will tell me what's going on and I'll react to it. Just like I did on the 12th. That was a rough week. Cramming all that kind of information into my mind and spirit was intense. And I felt the urgency to just really press on. And it's a good thing I did, because you people are definitely doing the right things. And I know it's very hard to be apart from people and all the activities that we do with one each other. You know, we live for that. You know? A lot of people do. I mean, I even see how people that are fans of Ari, you know, if she doesn't speak for a day or two, she's, you know, got people going, what's going on? You know, they want something from her to make them feel good. She makes them laugh and smile and love life. And that will continue. Trust me. I know it seems bleak and dark, but this world's been through some very dark stuff in the past, and it's come out on top. And this should teach people a lot of lessons about playing around with genetics, especially dangerous stuff, without supervision, without a mass consciousness behind it, instead of just a few narrow black box kind of stuff. That's ridiculous. Because who is watching that? Who's monitoring them? And who's monitoring these private places that spend tons of money playing around with Ebolas and Coronas and all kinds of weird diseases. That CRISPR-9 is a nightmare. You need to get that stuff out of the hands of the layperson and get it in the hands of people that are more responsible. You let just anybody play around with that stuff. They send out tons of kids. I've seen people playing with it with fish and then they release them into the wild. Who knows what that kind of stuff's doing? You keep playing around with stuff and you call it editing. It's not editing. It's mutating genetic structure that has been made specifically to interact with each other. GMOs, all that stuff. You gotta stop it. Stop mutating stuff. You're not God. You don't know what you're doing. You're playing around with stuff. And now look where we're at. And it had to take a really big research team that has a lot of money behind it that's talked about this stuff for a long time. Yeah, you eugenists make me sick. Your day's coming real soon. Trust me. The guilty are already known about. So, all I say is, may God have mercy. Because judgment's coming. And you know who you are, people. So does Father and Jesus. Jesus is in every one of you. He knows all your dirt. He's told me so many things, I got sick of listening to it. How disgusting some of this stuff is. People are doing. So, I'm going to quit being pissy for the moment. Because I want children to be able to listen to my show too. But I am the protector of this planet. I'm not going to stand idle by when people are trying to genocide a mass bunch and play games about it. Not on my watch. So let me tell you, I have lots of powers, independently or connected. Either way, Father has me set up. This is a war, and I am the general of the side of light and life. Don't anybody forget that. You may see me as a little man, but what's inside me is huge and powerful beyond belief. Trust me, it makes me tremble before it. And I'm brave enough to drop into a war zone like nobody's ever done for God. I'm fearless. And I warn this government to quit tampering with me. Bunch of fools. Yes, Father, I will calm down and get back to the course. Okay, here we are. Misunderstanding of something. There's my Ariana message.
New message is received from 40404. Messages at Ariana Grande. Oh my god, I love you so much it hurts. https://t.co/mx8whatgrew. m.twitter.com/Ariana Grande. New message is received from 40404. Messages at Ariana Grande. Can I pin her tweet? https://t.co/mx8whatgrew. m.twitter.com/Ariana Grande.
Thank you, Ari. I love that. I get CDC pop-ups like that and other alerts from all kinds of major agencies I'm linked into. I'm linked into a lot of forces around the world, Europe forces, UK, various outfits that I've picked that God has had me select. You on Twitter know who I've picked. And you'd probably be surprised at what I've picked. There's a lot of military that I communicate with. In fact, I first started telling them on the 12th. But I'm going to get to this teachings. Father Wizard Gene. Okay, this is a discourse on Job. It goes like this. Okay, it was the same evening at Bethsaida that John also asked Jesus why so many apparently innocent people suffered from so many diseases and experienced so many afflictions. In answering John's questions, among many other things, the Master, Jesus, said, "My son, you do not comprehend the meaning of adversity or the mission of suffering. You have not read that the masterpiece of Semitic literature, the scripture story of the afflictions of Job? Do you not recall how this wonderful parable begins with the recital of the material prosperity of the Lord's servant? You well remember that Job was blessed with children, wealth, dignity, position, health, and everything else which men value in this temporal life. According to the time-honored teachings of the children of Abraham, such material prosperity was all sufficient evidence of divine favor. But such material possessions and such temporal prosperity do not indicate God's favor. My Father in heaven loves the poor just as much as the rich. He is no respecter of persons, meaning that he loves everybody. I'm not sure why they use that no respecter thing, but here we go. Jesus continues as, although transgression of the divine law is sooner or later followed by the harvest of punishment, while men certainly eventually do reap what they sow, still you should know that human suffering is not always a punishment for sin. Both Job and his friends failed to find the true answer for their perplexities, and with the light you now enjoy, you would hardly assign to either Satan or God the parts that they play in this unique parable. While Job did not, through suffering, find the resolution of his intellectual troubles or the solution of his philosophical difficulties, he did achieve great victories even in the very face of the breakdown of his theological defenses. He attended to those spiritual heights where he could sincerely say, I abhor myself, A-B-H-O-R. Then was there granted him the salvation of a vision of God. So even through misunderstood suffering, Job ascended to the superhuman plane of mortal understanding and spiritual insight. When the suffering servant obtains a vision of God, there follows a soul peace, which passes all human understanding. The first of Job's friends, Eliphaz, Eliphaz, exhorted the sufferer to exhibit in his afflictions the same fortitude he had prescribed for others during the days of his prosperity. Said this false comforter, trust in your religion, Job. Remember that it is the wicked and not the righteous who suffer. You must deserve this punishment, else you would not be afflicted. You well know that no man can be righteous in God's sight. You know that wicked never really prosper. Anyway, man seems to predestined to trouble, and perhaps the Lord is only chastising you for your own good. No wonder poor Job failed to get much comfort from such an interpretation of the problem of human suffering. Jesus continues, but the counsel of his friend Bildad was even more depressing, notwithstanding its soundness from the standpoint of the accepted theology. Said Bildad, God cannot be unjust. Your children must have been sinners since they perished. You must be in error, else you would not be so afflicted. And if you are really righteous, God will certainly deliver you from your afflictions. You should learn from the history of God's dealings with man that the Almighty destroys only the wicked. And then you remember how Job replied to his friends, saying, I well know that God does not hear my cry for help. How can God be just at the same time so utterly disregard my innocence? I am learning that I can get no satisfaction from appealing to Almighty. Can you not discern that God tolerates the persecution of the good by the wicked? And since man is so weak, what chance has he for consideration at the hands of an omnipotent God? God has made me as I am, and when he thus turns upon me, I am defenseless. And why did God ever create me just to suffer in this miserable fashion? And who can challenge the attitude of Job in the view of counsel of his friends and the erroneous ideas of God which occupied his own mind? Did you not see that Job longed for a human God? That he hungered to communicate with a divine being who knows man's mortal estate and understands that the just must often suffer in the innocence as a part of his first life of the long paradise ascent. Therefore has the Son of Man come forth from the Father to live such a life in the flesh, that he will be able to comfort and succor all those who must henceforth be called upon to endure the afflictions of Job. Job's third friend, Zophar, then spoke still less comforting words when he said, "You are foolish to claim to be righteous, seeing that you are such afflicted. But I admit that it is impossible to comprehend God's ways. Perhaps there is some hidden purpose in all your miseries." And when Job had listened to all three of his friends, he appealed directly to God for help, pleading the fact that man, born of woman, is few of days and full of trouble. When then began the second session with his friends, Eliphaz grew more stern, accusing and sarcastic. Bildad became indignant. Indignant in Job's contempt for his friends. Zophar reiterated his melancholy advice. Job by this time had become disgusted with his friends and appealed again to God. Now he appeals to a just God against the God of injustice embodied in the philosophy of his friends and enshrined even in his own religious attitude. Next, Job took refuge in the consolation of the future life in which the iniquities of mortal existence may be more justly rectified. Failure to receive help from man drives Job to God. Then ensues the great struggle in his heart between faith and doubt. Finally, the human sufferer begins to see the light of life. His tortured soul ascends to new heights of hope and courage. He may suffer on and even die, but his enlightened soul now utters that cry of triumph, "My vindicator lives." Job was altogether right when he challenged the doctrine that God afflicts children in order to punish their parents. Job was never ready to admit that God is righteous, but he longed for some soul-satisfying revelation of the personal character of the Eternal. And that is our mission on earth. No more shall suffering mortals be denied the comfort of knowing the love of God and understanding the mercy of the Father in heaven. While the speech of God spoken from the whirlwind was a majestic concept for the day of its utterance, you have already learned that the Father does not thus reveal himself, but rather that he speaks within the human heart as a still small voice, saying, "This is the way, walk therein." Do you not comprehend that God dwells within you, that he has become what you are, that he may make you what he is? Then Jesus made his final statements. The Father in heaven does not willingly afflict the children of men. Man suffers first from the accidents of time and the imperfections of the evil of an immature physical existence. Next, he suffers the inexorable consequences of sin. the transgression of the laws of light and life. And finally, man reaps the harvest of his own iniquitous persistence in rebellion against the righteous rule of heaven on earth. But man's miseries are not a personal visitation of divine judgment. Man can and will do much to lessen his temporal sufferings, but once and for all be delivered from the superstition that God afflicts man at the behest of the evil one. Study the book of Job just to discover how many wrong ideas of God even good men may honestly entertain. And then note how many, even the painfully afflicted Job, found the God of comfort and salvation in spite of such erroneous teachings. At the last of his faith pierced the clouds of suffering to discern the light of life pouring forth from the Father as healing mercy and everlasting righteousness. John pondered these things in his heart for many days. His entire afterlife was markedly changed as the result of this conversation with the Master in the garden, and he did much in later times to cause other apostles to change their viewpoints regarding the source, nature, and purpose of commonplace human afflictions. But John never spoke of this conference until after the Master had departed. So, there we go with that lesson. Now, I probably should speak about our current issue. I know a lot of people think that it's not really fair what's going down, and it's not. Most of you people are very innocent of anything other than maybe minor misbehaving. I've always felt that most people are essentially good. But in bad situations, even good people can have to resort to desperate things. Please don't resort to desperate stuff, like breaking into people's stuff. A store was broken into and robbed recently in my area, and that kind of stuff just doesn't help anything. We do not need chaos or rampantness in the mind or in the streets. We need calm and collected and intelligent information that is not held from everybody. I'm so tired of certain people having certain information that they don't let out to anybody because they're trying to control and manipulate things. And there is a certain faction in the NSA who I just despise because they're spying on me constantly. Now, keep in mind I have 400 codes captured of people that have spied on me. From the city hall to the fire department to the police. Yeah, all using Wi-Fi spy. Yeah, nice trick. But I've got an engineering background, so I know how to look deep into stuff. I don't appreciate AT&T giving me fake phone systems with brooding stuff in it. I know all about that, and I've yelled at them on the phone personally a few times. All of these things that are transgressions against me, they're transgressions against God. Keep that in mind. He owns me, mind, body, and spirit. I am his instrument. So your violations are against him. And trust me, he's coming for you. Now, these violations against me are incredible. People from all over the county, churches, media, radios, it's unbelievable. All linked in my own home camera IR system, using my own personal code. So I caught them all. I would just sit by the road sometimes and let this phone scan them. Anybody using my code, I linked them. It was all kinds of people. I even caught Homeland Security coming by one day, and I caught them too. Got all your codes. jerks. God's coming for you, and trust me, you're going to be drugged into court. Spirit court, not physical. I'm talking spirit court. Because you violated God. Not just me, him. I'm merely a small piece of a pawn. So I demand something for the house of God from these people. They took my job that I had for painting. You just walk up and just snag it from me because I complained about the spying. It's insidious. And she used microwaves with Wi-Fi bombarding me. I have an ElectroSmart app that has all kinds of details about how much radiation I've been bombarded. And I don't even have internet here. But there's several devices all over the place. Yeah, I even had one on my belt. I was trying to take a picture with my phone while I'm sitting in my truck. And I had my phone set up to link to any Wi-Fi transmitting with my code. Yeah, suddenly I'm trying to take a picture of the hands at the steering wheel. Suddenly it links into my belt cam, which I didn't know I had. And I'm looking at my chin from my belly button on my phone. Disgusting. So I took the belt and I took it in a microwave and I nuked it. And it melted in one little spot. Never did spark again. Didn't transmit again. These things are an insidious NSA fucking spy bullshit. Excuse my French. And it's just like that vid I sent out earlier about one of NSA's former people and how illegal and unconstitutional the violations, especially in my life, have been. It's staggering. I'll probably need a team of lawyers to do it. Any lawyers out there that are willing to really smack it to it? Because I got all the codes. And your little RotoView program, that's disgusting too. Being able to look into someone's phone when it's flat on the ground and it RotoViews a 360-degree view of your phone and anything in the room. Anytime they want. I found little pins all stuck to it where they could just link in, pop up a little picture-in-picture screen, link into me. Watch me from multi-angled Wi-Fis, 3 of them in my bathroom mirror, one in a lamp, one in the TV. It goes on and on. Sensor Lab apps show all of it too. All the data, all the codes, everything. It's disgusting. This government needs to pull its head out of its ass and stop being criminal. Because God and me, Jesus are getting really sick of it. Don't think it's going to slide, because it's not. And I reiterate, I am merely an instrument of God. I have to follow everything He tells me to do. I want to anyway. Because He's the only real protection and proof of truth and love. Because what I see in this world is so dark at times, I wonder anybody can see the light. And I know that a lot of people have really woke up to real realities. And I'm sorry that I had to bring it and make it real. Because the other side, the dark side, is really bringing it. And they're arrogant. And they think they have the right to do whatever. Your banking system is a joke. It's all puppet by that one big you-know-what family. Yeah, I know all about that family. Let me tell you, Father's coming for you. He's coming. And I'll sit in this little room while He goes out, passes His judgment on those responsible for this stuff. I warn anybody anybody playing around with CRISPR-9 proteins that are mutating genetic structures, stop, cease and desist, and take what you have back to the authorities to be locked up under key. But you let that stuff keep going out there, and you're going to have more nightmares than you ever thought of. Corona 19, that's a scratch on the surface. Now, I don't want to give the impression to people that you're all weak and that you don't have a say or you can't do something. That's bull. You're all supreme beings. Don't forget it. Put your mindset to overcome this evil and put it together and pray, power up your spirit bodies, and put your energy into fighting this. I am a supreme channeler. I can channel all of it to fight it. So all that are of the light, band together and pray. Because you can defeat any darkness. You're a living, supreme being with a loud voice which has power to reverberate through the spirit realms. Pray, power up, empower the situation. Pray to God, pray to Jesus, pray to Allah, pray to whatever you've got as your higher power, and power this up to heal this world and bring it out of darkness once and for all, and end the war in heaven. That's my ultimate mission and goal. End this war, bring heaven, establish the school for ascension. And there will be nothing that will ever stop me. I am 100% fully committed. Now, I don't want to get in a position where I have to use something in a drastic way. I am to win by divine love, but I will defend this world and all that live in it. Now, I will once again throw it out there. Father wants all his children back. Light or dark, he wants them all back. Stop being bad and turn away from it and turn to your Father. He is here. He's waiting and waiting for you, every one of you. So you need to band together, be smart. We need to centralize information so everybody can access it. The internet's been great for it. I've sent all kinds of videos that were very illuminating to a lot of people. And I know that some begged me to stop sending them because it was so intense. And I'm sorry that I upset some people. But I was very upset by somebody trying to kill everyone and leave an enslaved bunch left. You want to know who's doing this? Go to that monument that they made for the 500 million mark where they brag about how they want just 500 million because you're a controllable number. This is a sick concept. By population control us and eugenics. Like I said the other day, I was sorry to find out Tesla was that way. He thinks that lower life forms, simple minds, are not worth letting them breed. That is the sickest thing I've ever heard. The light inside you, your spirit bodies and your personalities that are inside you, that is the same level of worth to God, no matter how low you are. Even the bum laying on a sidewalk, he's just as special to God as, some superstar. And I know that may be hard for some people to fathom, but that's the way it is. You're supreme beings. These suits that you wear called bodies are like clothing. You'll shed them and come back to life, and shed them and come back to life through layers of existence there are. There's physical realms that go on, and then the spirit realms from there on, ever getting closer to Father. Well, now things have changed. Now you'll have it right close and up front. Father is now in the physical realm like never before. And you're going to experience a world like no one's ever had before. This will be the embarking point for Ascension Masters that go into these new universes for the expansion of heaven. And let me tell you, no little evil, money-grubbing fools are going to stop it. You cannot defeat the Trinity of Light. Even if you took me out, you still can't defeat it. It's locked in place. So it's time to start repenting, ask for forgiveness, and turn to the light and walk into it gloriously and gain all the powers that a supreme being of your divinity level is entitled to. Father says 95% of you are going to go for it. And you will be amazed. I was. For a long time ago, I kneeled in a pasture many days in a row, and I begged the Father, take me, Father, make me an instrument. And that's what he's done. And I am your planetary prince now, protector of this world and realm, commander of the angels, general of them all. Don't anybody forget that. And I will protect everyone of light, and I will defend everyone's choice of will. You don't want to be of the light, you don't want to be this, you don't want to be that. You can go off and do your own thing, that's fine. I will defend free will choice. As long as you're not doing evil, I won't have a problem. And I know that kind of makes me seem like a target, but I'm not. Father's put a curse on me as an immortal creature that if anybody tries to do something to me, it's going to so backfire right at you. It's already happened several times. Besides, if you killed me, I would just pop back up. That's the way I am with him. 7 lifetimes. You may kill what you think is me, but you will not kill me. You watch. I got so many angels around me. There is no way. And Father engages me as a defensive weapon whenever he loves to. Last Easter, he really laid it on.